Başlayayım.
Раньше времени подошел, да?
бульбуль, что там есть? Учма, бульбуль, начинай. Karanfil, давай. Oturun kodalar, поехали.
Салям алейкум. Доброго вечора. Дорогі друзі, дякую, що ви сьогодні цей вечір присвятили Криму 5 ранку. І в мене велике прохання до всіх всю виставу перебувати в масках.
Нічого.
А також ми працюємо в режимі прямого ефіру, теж зважайте на це. Сьогодні, в Міжнародний день припинення безкарності за злочини проти журналістів, ми проводимо прем'єру документального перформансу «Крим. П'ята ранку».
Нічого немає.
П'ята ранку – час,
Нічого
коли
немає.
темні сили, ФСБ чи інші каральні органи можуть прийти в дім, де всі сплять, перевернути все догори дригом та забрати до в'язниці батька, сина або чоловіка. І поки наші співвітчизники за надуманими звинуваченнями знаходяться за ґратами, ми хочемо
Our
розповісти
citizens
їхню
are
історію.
still being
Бо за
imprisoned
кожним
illegally. We want to
політв'язнем
tell their
стоїть
stories
важлива,
because every
цікава
political prisoner
та
has a
хвилююча
story
історія.
to share and has
Мене
a human
звати
destiny
Алім
to share.
Алієв,
My
я
name is Alim
співкуратор
Aliev, I'm the
проекту «Крим. П'ята
co-curator of the project
складається
Crimea
із
5
п'єси,
AM, the project that is
перформансу,
made
книги,
of
а
the
також
documentary performance, a
інформаційної
play, an informational campaign, and a book. The
показу
organizers of our Ukrainian premiere
компанія
has been
Dollmen,
supported by the
Mejlis
Dollmen
Кримськотатарського
Company,
народу,
by
за підтримки
Mejlis of
Агентства
Crimean Tatar
США
People, with the support of the
Також ми
USAID.
дякуємо Українському дому
We're
за
also really
цей
grateful to
чудовий
Ukrainian House for providing the space for
Над
today's
проектом
event.
працює багато
We have had
прекрасних та
a lot of
талановитих
people
людей.
working on this project.
Драматурги Наталія
The
Vorozhbyt,
screenwriters
Anastasia
Natalia Vorozhbyt,
та
Anastasia
Альбер
Kosodiy,
Сардарян,
and Albert
Ленора
Sardaryan,
Дюрбер,
Lenora
режисер
Dürber,
Дмитро
Director
Kostyumynsky,
Dmytro Kostyumynsky,
співкураторка проекту
the
Nadiia
co-curator of the
Sokolenko,
project Nadiia
продюсерка
Sokolenko, the
Veronica
producer Veronica
та велика
Skliarova, and
комунікаційна і
the
технічна
whole
команда.
technical and
Музику і
communication
спів, які
team.
ви сьогодні
The
почуєте,
musics and the
створили
songs that you're
неймовірна
about to hear
співачка
have been
Jamala,
created by
композитори
Jamala.
Урсім Бекір та
Ursim Bekir and Nadiia Bochenko
інструментальний
composed it,
гурт
instrumentally band
Окрема
Musafir.
подяка
A
нашим
separate
медіа
gratitude to our
партнерам,
media
які зараз в
partners, the
прямому
media
ефірі
partners that
транслюють
have
цей
been
захід.
broadcasting
А
this
також
event
десятку
live,
громадських
and we're really
та
grateful to
правозахисних
dozens of
організацій,
human
які
rights
щоденно
organizations and
борються за
civil
те,
society
аби Крим
organizations that are
став
fighting
територією,
every
де
day to
підтримуються
make
права
Crimea the
і
territory
свободи
where the
людей.
human rights and human
Сьогодні ми
freedoms are
презентуємо українську
respected.
прем'єру.
Today we're going to have the
Але
Ukrainian
невдовзі
premiere of this
прем'єри
event, but quite
перформансу
soon the
різними
performance is
мовами
going to
та
be
локальними
premiered in
складами
different languages,
учасників.
with
Ми
different
покажемо
people
Польщі,
locally will be shown in
Німеччині
Poland,
та
in
інших
Germany, and in many other
Міжнародний
countries.
напрям
The
куруватиме
international
Міністерство
direction will be
закордонних
curated
справ
by the
України
Ministry of
та
Foreign Affairs of
Український
Ukraine and Ukrainian Institute.
І
And
наприкінці я хочу сказати, що
by the
ця
end of my short
вистава
presentation, I
є
just wanted to
квінтесенцією
say that
того,
this play is the
багато
main
хто з нас
essence
займається
of what
довгі
we have been
місяці.
doing for this long
Це не
8
лише
years.
про
It's not just
115
about
політичних
115
в'язнів,
political prisoners of
серед
Kremlin
яких 11
who
громадянських
currently
в'язнів.
have the 11
проект
civil
не про
journalists
цифри.
today. It's not about
Цей проект
figures,
про
it's not
долі,
about numbers, it's
про
about the
мрії.
destinies, it's
Цей
about
проект
dreams.
про
This
нас.
project is about
До слова, я зараз
ourselves.
хочу
So I would like to
запросити
invite
Рифата
Rifat
Чубарова,
Chubarov,
голову Меджлісу Кримського
the
татарства.
head of Mejlis of Crimean Tatar People.
Завдяки нашим партнерам,
With the support
які
of our
ведуть
partners
зараз
that
трансляцію
have
нашого,
been helping us to broadcast
тисяч
this
людей
performance
у
live,
тимчасово окупованому Криму
dozens of thousand people in the temporarily occupied Crimea are currently watching their screens of television, of computer, of laptops, mobile phones, any gadgets that give them the opportunity to track this event live. But even more people are going to be watching this performance recorded. I know that many people who are going to be listening to every single word that is about to be said today, they're going to be catching every single gesture, and they're going to be trying to find, to catch, to feel the long-awaited answer to the most important question that can be expressed with one word. When will the evil leave the Crimean land, and when will the people who brought it will go away from the Crimean land? When will everyone who has been captivated and incarcerated illegally will be back home? When they will be able to hug their children, their parents, their loved ones? When finally, above the skies of Crimea, we will see Ukrainian flags and the Crimean Tatar national flag. This question, when, has been the loudest word for the places where the Crimean Tatar people have been displaced. All of us, young and old, were always living with a hope to get back to our home place, back to our homeland, to Crimea. Crimean Tatars fought with all of our powers to make it reality, and we've got back. That was really hard for us. There was tremendous losses. With years and years have passed, and we finally got settled to start working on the other important deeds, but now the perpetrators have once again came to our land. Right now, we're about to see, are about to listen, about to experience 11 political prisoners' stories. The Crimean Tatars, who represent more than 121 people, the Crimean Tatars, ethnical Ukrainians. So please do know right now that those people, those 11 journalists whose stories we're about to listen, those are the people who represent the Crimea as it is. And answering the question when is the question that we have to answer, each and every one of us. I would like to pass the floor to Natalia Vorozhbyt, the screenwriter. Good evening,
ladies and
gentlemen. I'm not a Crimean Tatar, but for the last year I have been working with my colleagues Linora Dubler and Anastasia Kosodiy on this play. Why? I do believe that each and every one of us, each Ukrainian, they feel the loss of Crimea as our personal loss. We're missing out Crimea, we feel the pain and we feel injustice. But I might be living without Crimea. But there are some people who cannot live without Crimea. There are the people who are fighting for this rights to live there, who have fought for it in ages, the people who have lost this land once already, and for the people whose this land is the main meaning for their life. Each and every one of us, we have the land like this, the land that we cannot live without, the land that we are afraid to lose. For example, in the last 8 years, I am afraid to lose my country. I am afraid of mourning possible arrest. I am afraid of war. And the love to my land, to my homeland, to my family, and the fear of losing it is something that gives us the opportunity to get closer not only with the Crimean Tatars but with each and every person here. We have created this play based on the interviews of the families of the political prisoners. Mostly we have interviewed the wives of political prisoners. We were basing on the documentary materials, and we've tried to preserve this live intonation, this emotion that we've had, so that those soulless lists of political prisoners would turn into real live people. So thank you for being here today. I'd like to pass the floor to the director, Dmytro Kostyumynsky. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to have a lot of your time. I wanted to thank each and every one of you personally for being here today and for sharing this evening with us today. This is a really big tragedy for me. That is the greatest problem that exists today. And for me, it is an important problem, both individual and general problem. So I just want to say that this problem is the problem that touches each and everybody's hearts. When we will speak about this problem aloud, the more the people will know about it, the more we're going to tell people about it, the more we will have the opportunity to stop this aggression, to stop this crime. I wanted to say a technical moment about our actors today, about our performers, about our readers. They're going to be reading out 2 or sometimes even 3 roles that are made in the play. The one actor is going to be performing 2 or 3 roles, and they're going to be mentioning the names of the characters, they're mentioning the name of the people who were the main sources of the story. Thank you very much for being here. I can't even say have a nice evening, it's not the right way to say. Just thank you. Thank you for being here. Let us all together be engaged into that and join our characters as much as possible and support them as much as possible. Thank you. So Crimea, 5 a.m. We are about to start, and I would like to invite the participants and the actors of the performance. Please welcome singer, the main lead singer of Boombox, Andriy Khlyvniuk, journalist, television host, civil society activist Myroslava Gongadze, the human rights protector, the head of the Amnesty International Ukraine, Oksana Pokalchuk, director, actor, the head of Crimean House, Akhtem Seitablaev, singer, the soloist, the main singer of Go A, Kateryna Pavlenko, journalist, the chief editor of Ukrainian Pravda, Sevgil Musayeva, actress Kateryna Molchanova, charitable founder of the charitable foundation Believe in Yourself, Irina Tanchuk, writer and translator Kateryna Kolotko, journalist, host of the Freedom of Word, Vadym Karpyak.
Nariman
Jalal is the first deputy head of the Mejlis of the Crimean Tatar People. He did not leave Crimea after the occupation. Levisa Jalal. We went to bed at about 1 o'clock. Aziz Akhtemov, Crimean Tatar activist, At 2 o'clock he had a phone call from Aziz's father, Askandar Aga. He says, Nariman, they searched at Aziz, they took him away, they suspect him of some kind of explosion. Nariman asked, what kind of explosion? The blast occurred on the 23rd of August 2021. According to the Russian Secret Services, a gas pipeline in the village of Perevalnoe near Simferopol was damaged that day. No photos or videos from the blast site have never been released. Honestly, we all thought about some kind of explosion that happened, I don't know, I don't remember, near Alushta or somewhere there. We thought about it for the first time. On August 23, Nariman Jalal was in Kyiv, taking part in the opening of the Crimea platform for summit. And here at the summits of the morning we have the same, all wearing masks, while balaclavas, they were still outside and lots of common people. Well, you know, no matter how you prepare yourself, this barbaric invasion, real inhuman, cruel invasion, it destabilizes a person in any case, and all of your preparation are vanishing. Did you manage to say something to each other when Nariman was taken? We didn't even understand until then. I didn't even say goodbye to him. When he was leaving, the only thing that was there, he said, let's talk to him and we'll let him go. Not for a long time. That's what I've heard really good. And Nariman looks at me like this. Nariman Jalal, did you hear that? That's not going to be long. Well, he was quickly washed his face, got dressed and went out, and that's it. That was all of our communication. He had already been taken out into the yard. They were all already standing outside. I was standing with my child in my arms, and I see him in the kitchen window, just in my robe, watching him taking me out of the yard. Nariman Jalal. Today is Sunday, and I'm in the cell of the Simferopol isolator. Trying to eat. Levisa, my dear wife, sent too much of food. I swallowed dumplings one by one. When will I be able to eat some homemade or even normal food? I miss mirrors, most of all. I want to look at myself all the time, and a sense of time. We used to adjust our lives with the clock, but here, for many times I have thought how would I behave myself in a situation like that, but I knew that not my strongest side. And risking every day in the public space, I wanted to be this sustainable hero here. And the single cell reminds me of my last room in our university dorm. Well, let's see what will happen next. Others have gone through this, and I will try to. It's just interesting why he was there in the car. The window was lowered a bit, and the girls and I were saying, Dunya varsing el kuzey Krim, you exist, beautiful Crimea. And he said, did he heard that? Have he heard that? Or haven't he heard that? This is Nadiia Kashka. When she was 10 years old, she was deported from Crimea to Uzbekistan on Stalin's orders. It happened to all Crimean Tatars in 1994. The year Nadiia Kashka returned to Crimea was the year a man first landed on the moon. Nadiia has lived in Crimea when the Soviet Union collapsed, and the other Crimean Tatars returned to the peninsula. Nadiia had lived in Crimea when the peninsula got occupied by the Russian troops in 2014. Nadiia died in Crimea when the Russian occupation enforced arrested her in Simferopol in 2017. Her heart just stopped. This is Rishat Ahmetov. He was born in Simferopol and admired Mahatma Gandhi's doctrine of non-violent resistance. On February 28, 2014, Rishat was 39 years old. He posted on his Facebook page, "On Monday I will go to the Council of Ministers. It will be a standing protest. I dare you to join me." On March 3, 2014, he left his house without saying anything to his family. He had his ID card and a card for receiving child benefits. At noon his wife called him, but the number was unavailable. "12 days later, Rishat Ahmedov was found dead. His head was wrapped with duct tape, his eyes were poked out, and the handcuffs were found nearby. His death was caused by a stab wound to the eye. On March 3rd, Rishat Ahmedov took part in a peaceful protest against the temporary occupation of Crimea by the Russian troops. For an hour and a half, he had stood in front of the Council of Ministers of Crimea. 3 members of the so-called self-defense units of Crimea approached him, took him for the square, forced him into a car, and drove to an unknown location. This is Kamianka area in Simferopol. On March 27, 2019, it became the site of a so-called anti-terrorist operation. Russian occupation security forces surrounded the area to search the homes of those suspected to be involved with the Hizb ut-Tahrir. Hizb ut-Tahrir is an international pan-Islamist political party. In 2003, it was declared a terrorist organization and banned in Russia. Since 2014, the Russian security has been locating more and more members of Hizb ut-Tahrir in Crimea. They break into the self-built homes early in the morning, at 5, sometimes 6 a.m. The children of the terrorists are crying, their wives are hastily covering their heads with hijabs, and in the meantime, the occupation security officers are inspecting the bookshelves for any literature in Arabic. Such books are considered solid evidence of someone involved with Hizb ut-Tahrir. On March 27, 2019, the atmosphere in the Kamianka area is heated. Russian occupation security forces clash with the Crimean Tatars. Several are arrested. We learned about it from the international media, not because the political decided to step in. This footage we have seen through the citizen journalists, through the regular Crimean Tatars with smartphones and immediate access to the internet. This play tells the story of the 10 of them. Окей, але я
Сейран Салієв народився 1985 року у місті
1985 in Abinsk, Krasnodar Krai.
Семирічним разом із
He
родиною
moved back to
повернувся в
Crimea
Крим.
with his family at the
Отримав
age of
спеціальність
7.
оператор ПК
He
у
finished
48-му
college in
ВПУ.
Simferopol and became
Має
the
неповну вищу
keyboard
освіту за
operator. He
спеціальністю
also has an
філолог
incomplete
турецької та
degree in Turkish and
кримськотатарської мови.
Crimean Tatar
Захоплюється
philology.
історією
Was
Криму.
interested in the
Влітку
history of
працював
Crimea, worked as a
екскурсоводом у
tourist
Бахчисараї.
guide in Bakhchisarai
Одружений,
during summer.
4 дітей.
Married, has 4 children.
2014
In
року Росія
2014,
здійснила
Russia
спробу
attempted an
анексувати
annexation of the
Автономну
Crimea
Республіку Крим та
Peninsula
місто
as a,
Севастополь.
and
Сейран
Sevastopol
почав
city.
відвідувати суди
Seyran
за
began
сфабрикованими
attending
справами
court
і
hearings
місця
of the
обшуку.
fabricated
Як
cases
громадянський журналіст.
as a citizen journalist.
11 жовтня
On October
2017
11,
року
2017,
Сейран
Seyran
Салієв,
Saliev, as well as 5
татарів
other
заарештували,
Crimean Tatars, were arrested
обвинувативши в
on
тероризмі.
ill-founded terrorism
Суд у Ростові-на-Дону
charges.
засудив його до
Court
16
in
років
Rostov-on-Don
позбавлення волі.
sentenced Seyran to
Вирок
16
ще не
years in
набув
prison.
чинності.
The sentence
Захист
hasn't
подав
as yet of
апеляцію.
taken effect. The defense has filed an appeal. Betrothed.
Муміна Салієва.
Mumina Saleva, he told me that his wife has to be a beautiful singer. As a child, he was attending an amateur theater courses and he enjoyed both dancing and singing. And I told him then, well, I could only sing to you after the wedding. Seyran Saliev. Well, that wasn't unfair. Like, you can't actually sing. Then you'll have to put up with my singing to the rest of your life. My fellow student lived in the same dorm as Seyran. We accidentally ran into each other in the doorway, just like that. And he was seriously apologizing nervously, like, I'm sorry I didn't notice you. He had a printed T-shirt, a Castor or Prodigy, some kind of a band. Then, in a matter of minutes, our eyes locked, and he told me, when he was picking my bag, if you ever need my help, I'm here to help you. And myself, being a typical straight A student, pretty proud of myself, I thought, like, why would he actually doing that? He lives in a dorm and like that out of sudden. But he started to wait for me after the lectures and walk me home. And at first it seemed like out of nowhere. Oh, Assalamu alaikum. And you, it turns out. So you're also studying here. Let me help you. Let me walk you home. Let me help you with this. And thus, little by little, our relationship started. But the crucial thing was that he was Yali Bolyud for me, and it turned out that I was for him as well. I can't put it without, we have the Crimean Tatars comprise the 3 sub-ethnic groups. There's no guys of the northern part of peninsula where they lived, and then there are the Tats from the central part, and the Yali Bolu, who lived in the Crimean mountains. Halibadi Pikirova, I was the first-year student at the Department of Mathematics of IT of Taurida National University. They now call it the Crimean Federal University. I moved into the dorm with the Simferopol, and Ramsey lived on the 4th. And even then he was very active and sociable, and he often gathered the students in the dorm, and he really liked to take them on tours. They wanted to take to Dmytro, to Chatrdak Mountain, to Kyiv Neapolis. And then he told me that it happened that in our city they have a shower, and all of the dorms went to shower in the room in the basement. And once while we were walking down the stairs from the 4th floor, he has happened to hear that someone speaking Tatar on the staircase. Ramzi Bekirov. And I looked around to see who that was speaking such good Tatar. And there was this little girl. And it turned out to be you. Back then I could call my Anashka, my mom, every single day, and I flee to the staircase to escape the noise of the halls. Aisha Asanova. I was still a schoolgirl. It seems it was my 9th year or perhaps the 8th, I can't quite remember. Well, he came to teach at our school, Suleiman. He taught Crimean Tatar language and literature. We weren't formally acquainted, no, even though I knew that there was a new teacher, and I was very modest, serious girl, and I had no interest in such things. And he told me later, Suleiman Asanov, I spotted you in the crowd right away. You were the most modest of them all. And his mother, she taught at school as well, and as was a part of the dancing class, I remember his mother approaching me at once and saying, you see, I need, my son is taking part in a competition presenting the Crimean Tatar dancing and cuisine, and I need you, to dance with him and to participate with the traditional Crimean Tatar dance. That time I agreed to that, and we got to talk to one another a little bit, but soon it all got over. That's why I was so surprised when he showed up to my prom with an enormous bunch of flowers and made his intentions clear in front of everybody that, well, he liked me and wanted to spend his whole life with me, and just like that. So later, I finished school, I went to university, I studied, and after that more studying, we eventually got married. Timur Ibrahimov, born 1985 in the Republic of Uzbekistan, Yangi-Yul city, moved back to Crimea with his family at the age of 6. Timur went to the university, the Department of Foreign Language Philology. Since 2007, he worked in computer repair and retail. He started his own business. He's married, has 4 children. Since 2014, Timur has been an avid citizen journalist. Thanks to his footage, Ukrainian TV networks were able to show what happened in Crimea after the Russian temporary occupation. On October 2nd, 2017, Timur was arrested on the charge of terrorism. On September 16, 2020, the court sentenced Timur to 17 years of prison. Defense has filed an appeal. At the moment, Timur is kept in detention center number 3 in Novocherkassk, Rostov Oblast. Dilara Ibrahimova. It so happened that I couldn't go to the university right away after school. My father told me I won't be able to help you, and it so happened that my sister's husband recommended a cafe, Ashlama Sarai, in Bakhchi Sarai, the old city. And then, when I went there, I saw Timur there. And I was working for just 1 season, the 4 months. And back then, I still had a really old chipped-down phone, and but buttons was in black and white screen, though I didn't really care much. And everybody else, the modern one, they call the screens. And he told me, Timur Ibrahimov, oh, hey, I've got a phone. I can give it to you if you like it, for the lowest price, want it? For the price of the cheapest black and white down phone, so to say. And everyone told me, Ashlama Sarai, I would like to buy that. And he said, no, I'm offering this only to her. Well, I'm kind of sorry for her, but she doesn't have it. Even though everybody figured it out straight away and kept saying, she's the only one who get the phone for this price. It's all for her. He also brought me the ice cream, the most expensive. He loaded out our fridge and then said it. Well, I don't really want to eat it. You can eat it for yourself. So he asked me, and he said that he wanted to talk to me, and I was usually the one who paid the waiters, well, him as well, and I tried to have a personal conversation with everyone, and I thought that maybe something has happened, maybe I have made a mistake. And then he tells me, you see, it's no joke, I've decided to get married. I'm thinking, what does he expect for me to say? I think maybe he's looking for some advice. He is asking about some girl, whether maybe I know her or not. Again, I was totally clueless at this very moment. And then he tells me, well, I decided to get married, and I'm asking you to marry me. I was quite literally shocked. I didn't expect it in the slightest. And the first thing I said, that I'll think about it. It just came naturally. And with this thought, I've came back home and I've told my mother, Mom, has a proposal. Or after I said, Mom, I'm getting married. Just like that. And my dad was like, to whom? And I've told to Timur. I'm marrying Timur. And he was silent for a moment. And then my father says, he's a good fellow. The marriage. Nikah means marriage in Arabic, a legal contract between a man and a woman in Islamic family law. For it to be valid, the certain conditions are to be met. The husband has to be an adult Muslim who is in the category of mahram, that is, not a close relative. Elzara Suleimanova. We were celebrating nikah in home. It was January, it snowed, and it was so lovely. That memorable day, even though it was a winter, it seemed that winter made it all even more interesting, and the snow. And for me, as I remember it, it was as if it's the happiest day of my, by then 19 years of long life, like a fairy tale. Me wearing a white dress. Yes, I had a white dress. Then Ruslan arrived with, and he gave me flowers, white roses. My betrothed. He kept saying how he glimpsed at me and he fell in love with me. Now he found the right one, to start a family with. The stars aligned. As a Muslim, I am aware that the husband is the head of the family, and the wife submits to the husband, whatever he says. One has to obey. Mumina Saliva. I still remember that we got married on this September 3rd, and we didn't have a proper honeymoon, anything of that sort. And then, about 2 weeks later, we decided to pay a visit to his sister. Can you imagine that? I'm getting ready in front of the mirror, and out of sudden he looks at me and says with surprise, Seyran Saliyev, what's up with the lipstick you're wearing? Go and take it off. And you see, and I have my own ambitions. I'm young, and my girls to do it. My parents never refused me anything, so I refuse. You have to obey your husband. And I tell him that as a wife, I deserve the fair treatment. The upshot confrontation. I refuse to give in, keep bringing up the arguments for my point, and so does he. Well, then we aren't going anywhere. Don't you get it? I've spent so much time on getting ready, and right now I have to take the dress off? No, we're not going anywhere. Yes, we are staying here. Fine, let it be. And it happened again and again, especially in the first few years, just because neither wanted to give in. But Seyran has changed a lot since then. Even more, our daughter was born. The birth of the girl seemed to have greatly transformed him. There is some kind of softness and tenderness about him, and well, I certainly deserve credit for it. And just because the woman has started to influence Seyran, and Seyran has been spoiled. But really, he took a lot from me, especially his softness and his ability to listen to others. Nadiia Sokolenko. Our wedding took place in a greenhouse on November 8, 2014. It was warm, and we only wore light dresses. Everything was decorated. He lifted the scarf during the dance Crimean Tatars have called the Vyavluh Avasi, the dance with scarf, where the dancer has to lift the scarf dropped by the girl from the floor without touching the floor with his hands. He has to lift it with his lift. So Osman lifts his scarf with the lips, and their wedding attendant says, Osman, now you will get all the money under the scarf you have, and you have buy chocolates. But he put that into the money of his pocket and forgot about this money. About it, I was once watching the wedding recordings and asked him, like, wait a second, where's my chocolate is? And he said, like, oh, where the money is. And it turns out they were still in the jacket, and he took this money and bought this chocolate for me. Surya Sheikhaliyeva. Well, the wedding was, my mom got really sick after moving back here. She had cancer. So the wedding was so sad because we knew that she's going to die. And so we didn't have things like no grand feelings in the wedding mood, like I was getting married so that mom could see me. I was the first to get married in my family, and so was he, like, so the family could see the wedding. And what about Rustam from the first day? He told me the truth right away, just as it was. It so happened that the wedding was completely organized by my family because his parents were just literally removed from Uzbekistan. His grandmother didn't have these opportunities to afford it, and he was making his money on the local markets. And he kept saying, Rustam Sheikhaliev, I am what I am, and it's nothing that's going to happen but my name. You'll have to accept me just like I am.
Rustam Sheikhaliev,
born in 1979 in Samarkand, Republic of Uzbekistan, moved back to Crimea with his family at the age of 14. After school, he went to the technical high school number 26 to train as electric and gas welder. He never pursued his profession. In 1998, he went into trade, became a small businessman, and acquired a selling spot at Simferopol Central Market, where they sold fruits and vegetables. He had tons of loyal customers and was well known with his trade dealings. Married, has 3 children. After 2014, he began attending court hearings, had assistance and support to the families of political prisoners, recorded photo and video footage from his phone and camera, thus brought to light the persecution of the Crimean Tatars. On March 27, 2019, Rustam Sheikh Aliyev's house was searched. He was arrested on the charge of violating Part 2 of Article 205.5 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation, involvement in a terrorist group. Rustam is facing up to 20 years in prison. Surya Shaykhalieva. He never promised me anything under the sun. No, quite literally, he promised me nothing. When we got married, I just got along with it. I thought that I'll get used to that, just like he was, for the sake of my mom. And then it turned out that, those feelings come into process. After all, we've lived together for some time, and we've got together for 20 years, and he took the place of my mother, my father, brother, and sister. Elzara Suleimanova. He's always done his best to guide me. It's nothing. Do not worry. It's gonna be all right. Even when he just had gotten married, literally the day after, we lived in an apartment on the first floor, and the owners, our friends, lived downstairs. Well, they came in and said, "Hey, Ruslan, we'll drop by shortly for some cheburaki." And I remember totally losing my head. What? I didn't know. What should I do? And Ruslan was like, "Hey, don't worry, don't panic." And I know, thinking back before I knew Chebureki was ready, he made it straight away. I was frying them while he was preparing the meat step by step, and then I see he's already washing the floor, and there was a good sign. Halide Bekirova, on our 11th wedding anniversary in Nikach, he sent me a bouquet of roses and his teddy bear, like from the detention center. He actually told Ayuv, which means bear in Crimean Tatar. Well, he sells like teddy bear, and he gave me this bear, and he said to me, and he said, like, let him replace me in my absence while I'm away. It's nothing, don't worry, it's okay, everything's gonna be all right. Ruslan Suleimanov was born in 1983 in the Republic of Uzbekistan. In 1993, he moved to Crimea. He graduated school with honors. He became a student of Taurida International University, Department of Physics and Magnetic Phenomena. After graduation, he worked as a software developer and private physics tutor. Married, has 3 children. Ruslan Suleimanov is a citizen journalist, Crimean solidarity activist. On March 26, 2019, the activist was detained by the administrative checkout Kalanchak by the Russian border patrol. He had kept him waiting for 7 hours and spoiled his passport. He was arrested the next day. He is facing up to 15 years in prison. Home. Dilara Ibrahimova. He always kept saying, the big house with a room for everyone, so that the house could have a lot of guests, and so that the guests would be able to stay there at night. This garden of our own, the yard, and sort of different trees, like vegetable garden, what children like, and most loved the cherries. Mumina Saliva, Seyran has a very interesting habit, something that is not common to other men. Well, we were at the table, he's not even touching his food before we start to eat. Honestly, I've never witnessed this sort before. He would sit there and wait, and I kept telling him, begging him to eat something, like this dish is supposed to be served hot and it's already growing on colder. Yet he insisted, no, you should eat first. He always would wait until everybody finished their meal and ask them when I felt another. And the time that I've already finished, he started to eat. Aisha Sanova. Thinking back, initially we didn't even have the sort of a sofa, but not just a soft corner with 4 chairs, and that used to be our sofa covered with a blanket. And we also remember watching our TV, Photone, Nadiia Sokolenko, and we started to live in his grandmother. Well, you know, they didn't have a great life after being deported, and he really had a desire to have his own house, his own home. We planned that we would get the house when he will finally stay at home, because ever since he was 13, he moved here, he finished school, he went to train as a welder, he studied day and worked by night. He was just able to afford clothes because he said that the grandparents are getting old and I don't want to hang around their necks forever. So he was a galley slave, always working. He worked with the market, selling fruit and vegetables. This is sort of business, you know, that's it brings profits, of course, but a lot of things goes to waste. He was really honest and so fair, and it was like freezing. He said, like, it's damaged by frost, it's no good. He also had, in 2016, we came back here, managed just for those 3 rooms that were finished, the kitchen, the living room, the bathroom. That was all. We had nothing beside that, with the 3 kids. Right now it's 2020, so it seems like in 3 years. For 3 years he lived in this house. That's it. So the year and a half that he has been taken away, 3 years. He even says that I haven't even had the time to enjoy my own home. I wasn't even lucky. Aliev, when I got married, the first thing I noticed was the forest around me. And every single day I told my husband, one day to this side, the next to the other, then other, still. Then early in the morning, when the children were asleep, and even before we had any children, we went out here, and I don't know how to call it. Well, Osman called it a balcony. We went, opened the window, watched the sunrise, had coffee, the usual sunrise, the usual coffee. The husband is sitting next to you, just like to talk. Then he used to be beyond happy when I prepared buckwheat, but after all, no reason, he just likes it. So that is what, it wasn't a big deal for me to treat him with a meal. The usual buckwheat saved the day. Myroslava, he told me that his wife has to sing. And then, when I sent to him, it was literally like a week before he was arrested, and he told me, you know, your voice is probably one of a kind. I would never expect such a pleasant voice as yours to be matched only by that of Prophet himself. But considering no one has ever heard him, yours must be the most beautiful voice. And I thought to myself, well, I've lived up to the second part of the promise. And now, my dearest children, I am about to tell you a Russian folk tale called Sathin, which means corrupt in a God knows what language. In fact, it's not even a tale, but I'd rather not mention it just before bedtime. I'm referring to the case of the second Bakhchisarai group. The would-be accused were at the mosque. Among them, there was a Latvian citizen. He later reported that he had converted to Islam sometime before the events in question. By the time he entered the mosque, he was loaded with recording devices. Now, he entered the mosque and recorded everybody. Actually, he himself gives the command. Later, he used it. When you recorded that with a tempo, with the voices, you know who is saying everything. So, absolutely gives the commands. They later use him as a secret witness. They've made up to all of the nonsense. So it actually was clear who was recording everything and who was the one who provided these testimonies to the secret services. And basically, and I would like to tell you, dear children, how do you question the expertise? There are the group of Crimean Tatars talking about something. One of them say, I'm going to go to namaz. Namaz is a prayer that has to be made in a specific times. And he says, I am going to do namaz, literally meaning that he's about to pray. And yet, the experts transcribe the sentences as, I'm going to join Hamas, namely to join the ranks of the known terrorist group. There was another case. We were sitting there discussing the topic of law himself to God. And one of the participants asked, "Does anyone have any questions?" The experts turns it into the enemy will be left in pieces, and so on. So you see, anyone is miraculously transformed into enemy. They are not subtle. They feel free to add their own words, and it happens all the time. Nonetheless, every single expert report was accepted by the court as solid, valid evidence.
Выходим по одному. Руки за голову. Давай двигайся быстрее там, блин. Выходим по одному. Последний раз предупреждаю.
The arrests.
Ремзі Бекіров.
Ramzi Bekirov.
Ремзі Бекіров
Ramzi Bekirov was born in 1985 in Bekabad, Republic of Uzbekistan. Moved back to Crimea with his parents at the age of 7. Studied at Tavrida Vernadsky University Department of History. Has never pursued his chosen profession, as the teacher's salary turned out to be nothing to speak out. He worked in construction instead. Married, father of 3 children. In 2015, Ramzi became a citizen journalist. He recorded footage of all of the high-impact cases in the peninsula. The case of Vijaya Kashka, the search in Kamyanka, the searches in the case of Hizb ut-Tahrir. On March 28, 2019, Ramzi Bekirov was arrested by the Russian security forces. He is connected to the case of Hizb ut-Tahrir and is charged with terrorism. He is facing from 15 to 20 years in prison, or the lifetime imprisonment. Halida Bekirova, I was raised by the car alarm that suddenly was going off. It was our car. It was 5:55 a.m. I looked out the window and I didn't see anyone. I went to the bathroom, and when I got back to the living room, it was lit with bright searchlights from the window. And set against the searchlight, I could see the shadows of the men running. Right over here, the drapes, shadows running, and I was terrified. How many of them is out there on the street that they're running, and never seems to stop. At this point, I would normally wear a dress to bed because we were ready for something to happen for a year or and a half, and many of us, I mean the wives, would wear dresses to bed because it was the most dreadful, you know, if they had broken into the window, like had broken the glass and gotten inside and seen us, for example, undressed. And then I heard someone banging on the window, a dreadful sound, because, you know, if they are not quick enough to open within the second, then usually break the door down. Thank God at this moment my father got himself together and managed to let them in, and the door wasn't left intact. And you know, so when we have come to that, we have seen the doors already being taken down, and you know, without the husband, the wife would never get it all together without the husband. At least we had our door in place, that's okay. Dilara Ibrahimova, we heard somebody coming up the stairs as well, they're coming for us. Well, you know, it's like 15 people walking, yes, of course you would hear that, and Timur has said, they're coming for us as well. So that morning there was a knock on the door while he was on his way to the door, putting his shorten along the way, and they came in and they see that he was big, and the first thing that they push you and they get you to the floor, and this is the first time they get in, look at him, and they said, like, you know, we're not going to do anything, but you're gonna be good? Of course I'm going to be doing that. Aisha Sanova, they broke the door with a crowbar, and even I couldn't raise my head, and they were upstairs and shouting to my husband, down, hand behind the back. All the dreadful shouting woke up the children. They came out the rooms and, well, saw their father lying on the ground, handcuffed. I got dressed, joined them, and started to... And I've seen the following picture. The children were just there, standing there in tears. And those men are holding their machine guns against my husband. Now, get him up. Are you blind? You don't see you are frightening the children. He's the father, the best father. And you are torturing not just him, but them as well. Because they see it all. Rustam Sheikh Aliyev, I wasn't afraid for myself. The first thing I was thought that they would break the door, the windows, because, well, you know, it's September, it's cold. One, they will have this opportunity to actually restore it. So I've opened the door for them not to break the doors. Surya Sheikh Alieva, by the time he went out, there was a fully equipped people with rifles, and one of them shouted, hand behind the head. The other screamed, hands in front of you. The other shouted, hit the ground. And he got very calm. Then he said, hey, wait a minute, guys, like, make up your mind. What is exactly I'm supposed to do? And they backed down, replied, all right, okay, you're a reasonable person. Let us do it all clear. We'll go in. Maya Mustafaeva, I ran straight away to my parents, woke up the vendor to see Server up. Server woke up and mind that he's a heavy sleeper that he normally is, and yet when I told him that we have visitors, I have never forgot his face. You know, he was trembled. Elzara Suleimanova, first of all, we could not talk to anyone. They took all of their phones. They were following the instructions, saying don't make a fuss about it, keep quiet, keep it all together. And they didn't take their shoes off. They just went to turn the place upside down, searching everything, massing big things. At that point, you know, when I've had my mom fainted and I saw how indifferent they are. They see the woman fainting and one of them has commanded, oh, look, now they're clowning around. They knew no mercy or compassion, I guess. They've asked us to get to the other side of the house, and they take Ruslan there as well. I've asked them, I can be a witness, I can see some and because you can give us something, but they really got this first. They asked us, they've taken up the books, they've taken up from another closet, and we said our parents loved to live there, and they said, like, here you go, Ruslan, we have seen some of your books. They have their own script that they work on, just like that. Mumina Salieva, thank God I was at home, because I know that it's important for me to be there. It was important to me that I have been there, that I have been by his side, and so when he was there, I've told him everything's gonna be okay, everything's gonna be fine. Server Mustafayev was born in 1986 in the Republic of Uzbekistan. The family soon moved back to Crimea, to Bakhchisarai. He studied at Bakhchisarai Building Trade College at the National Agricultural University, graduated from college with honors, the associate degree in operating gas supply equipment and system from Kyiv National University. He used to work as a salesman and later as a manager in a mobile phones outlets. Since 2014, he has been a controlling co-owner of the Dolce bakery chain, married, father of 4.
Сервер стояв біля витоків
In
громадського
2014,
об'єднання
he was one of the
Кримська Солідарність.
originators
Був
of the
одним з
Crimean
його
Solidarity
координаторів.
movement. He was one of its
21
coordinator ever
травня
since.
2018 року
On the 21st of
будинку
May
Мустафаєва стався
2018, there was a
Після чого
surge in
сервера
Mustafayev House.
заарештували.
After that, he was
Згодом Південний окружний
arrested.
військовий суд
Later
у
on,
Ростові-на-Дону
court
засудив
in
його до
Rostov-on-Don,
14
the
років
Southern District Military
позбавлення
Court,
волі.
has imprisoned
Вирок
him
ще
for
не набув
14 years.
чинності.
The verdict has not yet
Апеляцію
taken effect as
досі
the
не
appeal
розглядали.
is still
Моя
being
Мустафаєва.
considered. Maya
Вона ж моя
Mustafayeva.
дитина тоді була якраз.
We had just
3,5
had our child back then,
було.
it's around 3.5
І о
months
6
there.
годині так.
And it's 6 a.m.
Щось
Yes, it's around 6
5:55
a.m. It was
була.
even
Такий
5:45,
стук,
55.
навіть
We heard some
стук шуму.
knocking. Well, rather,
Дуже такий
there was some
сильний шум. Я
noise.
виходжу з кімнати,
It was like
бачу
really
силуети за
loud. I
дверима.
went out
Я
of my
тоді
home, I see
розумію,
the
що прийшли
silhouettes
до нас.
behind my wall, and I
Чомусь
understand
у мене
they're
одразу
after
думка
us.
така в голові.
And the first thought that I've had was,
Думаю,
well,
Рамадан.
it's Ramadan.
Як це
How
так
could they
вони
come
могли
at such a
прийти?
time? Even worse,
А
on
на кухні
Monday.
слідчий сидів. І от
The
слідчий
investigator
сидить,
made himself comfortable in
знаєте,
the
такою
kitchen, and while he was
жіночною
sitting there, and you know,
темною.
he was like
Я йому
very
кажу,
dark.
а ви,
And
кажу,
I
так
turned up
схожі
to
на
him
кримського
saying,
татарина.
you know, you really look like a Crimean Tatar. I'm not a Crimean Tatar. You know, it was such disdain. And I said, well, you look like one. He's silent for a while, then I opened up the curtain and he told me, turn down the curtains. And I wondered, what's wrong? We don't need to draw unnecessary attention from the people.
Що я не можу
And
подивитися?
I checked that. Can I have a look for yourself? Look at how many people are there. I think that the whole world already knows that you came to us. Close the curtains. Nadiia Sokolenko. The children were woken up by the clamor of the officers. They were yelling and screaming and cursing all over the place. The boys took it calmly because I think I've got them prepared for a year at least. I tell them if ever at some morning the masked man broke into our house with rifles, no need to be afraid of them because they are cowards. Cowards, little cowards. The cowards that they're so afraid of us, they don't want to show their faces. They are entering the houses of the weaponless families. So our boys were really calm about that. They even expected that. Suryashi Khaliva. As to our eldest son, his room was the nearest, which is why they saw that it was our bedroom, and they started sneaking around and flashing their torches. And of course the boy got scared. Well, he's a grown-up boy, but he still was afraid, and he said the robbers broke in. And he was literally right. There are the actual burglars who robbed our family out of the nearest and dearest person that day, the man who took care of us. Aisha Sanova. The children have rabbits they kept outside. Why? You ask? Well, one of my sons has just said, I want a rabbit. And the right dad, Suleiman, got 2 rabbits, the cages, all the necessary stuff. It all got arranged, everything, you know. He thought that it would teach our children to love animals, to care about somebody from the early on. And this man, I remember, they were sniffing around, looking for something. Well, they got the rabbits free, you know. They will rummage it through the cage. God knows. And the children were crying. They couldn't catch them for 3 days. For 3 days to catch the rabbits back to the cage.
Пам'ятаю, дядько сказав.
Zulfiya Sheikhaliyeva, the daughter. I remember the man told us. Surya Sheikhaliyeva. Oh yes, there was one guy who was trying to be the good cop, and the other one was trying to hold us aside. And then we were sitting there, and they told us, "Hey, don't be afraid. Nothing bad is going on. It's all good. It's all good." And she replies, "What? What is good about it? You came here. That by itself means nothing good is happening." After all of the burden arrives alleviation. Dilara Ibrahimova. 15 people entered at once. They showed the warrant straight away, which said that he was facing from 20 years to a life sentence. And they began searching the living room, and they examined everything. They started to rob through the backpacks of our children. They looked at every page of their diaries, of every textbook, of everything. And it turns out that going through my diary, they said, like, so what, your daughter is a student, isn't she? What kind of groups you wanted? Gymnastics. Any others? You study Arabic, don't you? Yes. Do you like gymnastics? I have one Arabic class where we are learning the Sirah. Okay, maybe you can tell us perhaps, what's the difference? And just in case nobody doesn't know. Well, we study Sirah and we learn about the different prophets, what were their deeds, for example, what were their dominions. And with Ibrahim Oja, we read the Sirah, correct the mistakes. What struck you the most? The lives of the prophets. Would you remember? What about you? Who's your favorite prophet?
Мій улюблений
My favorite
пророк
prophet is
Сулейман.
Suleiman. And what is that so?
Він любить
He
тварин.
loves animals. Loves animals.
А я люблю
As a
пророка
matter of
Мухаммада,
fact, I
тому
like
що він був
Muhammad
чесний,
because he
його
was
називали
truthful, and
Алямін.
they
А
called
які
him
тобі тварини
Alamin.
подобаються?
And what kind of
Тигр.
animals do you
Тигр.
like? Tigers.
Бо вони
Tigers.
сильні?
Is that because they are
Так, а
strong?
може тому,
Or because
що
they're
хутро в нього
luscious
красиве?
fur?
А мені кролики
They like
подобаються, вони
rabbits.
гарні,
They're cute and
пухнасті.
І
fluffy.
швидко бігають.
And they're also
Так,
fast
і
runners.
стрибають
Yes,
високо.
and very high
Високо
jumpers.
стрибають,
High
так.
jumpers,
А в школі
indeed.
подобається
Now, do you like
навчатися?
school?
Який
What's
улюблений
your
предмет?
favorite discipline?
Математика,
Math.
там
We've
найдобріший
got
вчитель.
kindest
Так
teacher
тобі
there.
подобаються
Oh, I
добрі
see you
вчителі.
like kind teachers.
А ще
And
що
what else
подобається?
do you like?
І російська,
Russian
і
as well.
література.
And
У нас
literature. We've
російська
got Russian
література.
literature.
А мені все
And I like
подобається.
all
Я
of the
таблицю
disciplines. I'm
найкраще
the
з
best
класу
in
знаю.
tables in my class.
Далі вони почали висипати
Oh,
вже
and they've
іграшки
started
дитячі
to
з
get the
пакетів. Я
children's
кажу, а в іграшках що?
games as
Вони
well. And
кажуть,
they're like,
ну
what are you
раптом ви
looking
туди
in
щось
the
заховали,
toys?
щоб ми навіть
Maybe
не
you have
подумали
just
це
brought
шукати.
some there. Maybe we would not try to search from them as well. Surya and Khaliva, well, they didn't make a complete mass. They didn't check everything because they didn't scatter all the things in the place. They just took the books. And then he had a CD. He had performed Hajj twice, and he kept all of the pictures on the CD. Well, there were also those two books, The History of the Prophets and The Meadows of the Righteous. That was namely all these books that were sort of considered extremist material, they said. Close the curtains.
Цитати з
The
екстремістської
quotes
літератури
from the
назовіться.
so-called extremist literature.
Істинна справедливість Корану
The
не
true
принесе в
justice
жертву
of
життя
Quran
і кров
would never sacrifice
одного
the
невинного
life of a
навіть заради
single
всього
innocent
людства.
for the sake of the entire
Так
humanity.
само, як з погляду
In terms
могутності,
of
вони
courage as
дорівнюють один
well
одному,
as in the eyes of
так
justice, people are
рівні
equal
вони і з
among
погляду
themselves.
справедливості. Людина ж
Self-love may
через
drive a
себелюбство
human
може бути
being
такою,
to
що
destroy
готова знищити
everything
все,
that stands
що
in the way
заважає
of
її
his
амбіціям.
ambition,
І як
so
би
that he
могла,
would
то
destroy
знищувати
the
навіть
entire
увесь
world
світ
with all people
з
if
усіма
only
людьми.
he had the means to it.
Страх і слабкість
Fear and weakness
збільшують
increase
зовнішній
the
вплив.
outward influence.
Справжню користь
Actual
не
good
можна
can never
пожертвувати
be
за уявні
sacrificed for the
шкоди.
sake of imagined evil.
Цивілізація ж, яку несе
Civilization brought
велить
and ordered by the Sharia of Ahmad, peace and blessings be upon him, is the
її
following.
точка опори
It is founded not by force, but by the truth. It's caused by justice and balance.
Її
Its
мета не
goal is
вигода,
not
а
profit, but
доброчесність,
virtue,
від
which
якої
leads to the
виходить дружба
fellowship and
і
amity.
приязність. Її ж
Its
сторона
points
єднання
of unity is not
замість
nationalism,
націоналізму,
but
зв'язок
instead
релігійний,
the
вітчизняний
religious,
і класовий,
local and class
від якого
bond
виходить
which leads to
щире
global
братерство,
fraternity,
мирне життя
peaceful
і
coexistence, and
замість
the most
зовнішніх нападів
necessary defense
тільки
against the
оборона.
foreign invaders.
Її закон життя
Its laws
замість
of life
закону
is
боротьби,
not that of struggle,
закон
but that of
взаємодопомоги,
mutual aid,
що
which
породжує
gives
єднання
rise to
і
unity and
солідарність.
solidarity. It
Замість примхи
substitutes
в неї
fancy
шлях
with the
істини,
path of truth,
який веде до
which brings
прогресу людства
humanity
і
towards progress
духовного
and
розвитку.
spiritual growth.
Диляра Ібрагімова.
Dilara Ibrahimova.
Один зі співробітників
Their just in
вів
weakness were
таємну
kept in the
зйомку. Тобто,
doorway
якось
just
за штори він
standing, and he
намагався
was
відзняти
filming
кількість
from the
людей.
out of the
Вони
curtain. They
постійно
tried
між
to
собою
film the number of
перешіптувалися,
people, and they
що
were
десь
always
скільки людей
whispering
стоїть
something. There
отам,
are
а
some
ще машина
people standing
під'їхала,
there,
або
and
хтось
like a
під'їхав.
car come
І на що
in,
слідчий в кінці якось
and
так
then
йому
in the
грубо.
end, the
Іди
prosecutor
звідти.
has like stepped out of
Засвітись.
there. Do
Зараз
not
тебе
get into
помітять,
that.
а
They will
потім за це
notice
щось
you down,
прилетить.
and they will just tell you
Тобто
some
такі
that you did
моменти,
something about
що
this.
до іншого,
You know,
коли
there's some
слідчий вже
moments,
писав
and
протокол,
when
інші
when the
представники
prosecutor was
спецслужб,
writing the
тут
protocol, the
сидячи
other
на
Secret
дивані,
Service people,
просто
they were
грали в ігри
sitting
на
there and
телефонах.
playing
Вони
games
тут
on their
просто
phones.
розслабилися і
They were,
сиділи.
sitting there
Неприязні,
relaxing.
такої
There
не
was
було,
no
навіть
kind
слідчі
of
наприкінці,
real
коли
hostility
доблизилися
now
до
towards the end of
завершення
investigators. The
він
investigators
підійшов
said,
до мене і
came up to
каже,
me and said,
Беріть йому пакет
go pack
з
him
їжею,
some food and
бутербродами,
water,
водичкою
sandwiches
і
or whatever.
одяг і
All those
взуття
necessary
зручне.
things, you know, comfortable
Тому
clothes,
що він їде
shoes. Well,
далеко і
he's not
надовго.
going to come
Він не
back soon.
повернеться, тобто йому треба
He's
буде
not coming
поїсти,
back. Well, I
йому
mean,
треба буде
he has to have
попити,
some
це
food, water.
обов'язково.
That's very important.
Я йому поклала в
I
пакет
packed him some
бутерброди, набрала
sandwiches, a bottle
води.
of water.
Я йому підготувала
I've
змінні
changed the
речі,
clothes,
так,
even
капці.
sleepers, but
Але вони його не
they
взяли,
didn't take
цей
it.
пакет.
They didn't take it, the
Вони
package.
просто
They
не
just
взяли.
left it.
Але потім,
just
як
like
він
that.
розповідав на
And when he
побаченні,
told us
їх
then
погодували.
at the scene,
Їх
they had some
погодували
food.
тандирною
They were
самсою.
fed
Ідучи, він
with
мені сказав,
tandoori samsa, and he told me, I am really happy with you. Like, we've lived together all these years, and I have no bone to pick
знаєте,
now.
реальність така,
You see, the
що ми
truth
ніби
is
не
that
розуміємо,
we have no
кінцева це
idea
точка
if
чи
it's
ні,
the
або
end
це
or
тільки
just the
початок,
beginning,
або
or
що це.
in
Людина не
such
розуміє в цей
moments one
момент
cannot
і
tell for
хоче
sure,
почути оці
or what
головні
is
слова.
left for a while.
Разлик
And the one
свого
thing that you
чоловіка,
want to
це
hear,
для дружини
her husband's
найголовніше.
razlik, that's the
Муміна
crucial
Салієва,
words.
я кажу, ти там
Муміна
спортом
Салієва.
займайся.
I told him, like, do some sports there. I've read about them. The prison, I know how to live there in the prison. And I've understood that one of the chances for you to be more or less okay with health is just doing sports. And I've told him, just work out, And I told me, yes, okay, I'll do that. And when he already was leaving, I've told him, if I'll ever did something wrong, well, forgive me. And he replied, what are you talking about? I'm happy with you. Elzara Suleimanova. When mother asked her to say goodbye to her own son, they told her, yes, of course you'll have the time for that. But then, when the search has ended, one of the representatives of the circuit services had told me, well, he was already brought up. He was already for the investigation goes on. Lemara Mehmedimynova. The children cried their eyes out. There was the second search, and I guess they were supposed that he was coming back, so every time when the door opened, they were running up towards the door. I think they were doing for a couple of months when the door was open, and even when someone came for a visit, like relatives, I would always tell them to be quiet, don't make any noise, otherwise the children will take off running. Zulfiya Sheikh Aliyeva. He told me he loved me and also ordered me not to cry, and he always told me some sweet dolls, and we had really pretty dolls, lol, and he always was bringing me them, and he also brought a cake every Friday, either a raspberry or a caramel one, or he would buy my favorite cakes, eclairs. Elzara Suleimanova. Our eldest son remained calm throughout the whole thing. He was later, after the search, he seemed like hostile or rather nervous. He later told me they took him away. And with Babaka, they took away all the joy. Every burden brings alleviation. Every burden brings alleviation. Nariman Mehmedimynov. I ran to the door. I wanted to get it so they wouldn't break it. So wouldn't break it with force. So I reached the door and yelled, "Don't break in! I'll open it." But the door didn't give in, and they started cursing me with this every answer. They broke the door, they put me down, and they handcuffed me, and it was it. The rest of it was smoothly. Nobody raised hell. It was very civilized. Let's say they were like really insistent about the warrant, the search, so on. They spent a lot of time just writing things down, namely, there was not much searching going on. And at long they just rejoiced. They succeeded. They triumphed. They found my Ukrainian passport right here on the shelf. And when they took him away, it wasn't as if I knew that he was leaving. It was like the same time that it wouldn't last. I thought that it would be over and he would be back. Yes, it couldn't last that long. No, not that long. And when they told me to say goodbye, I said, no, I won't say farewells, he will be back. And when the next morning I was collecting belongings because he left with empty hands and I had nothing to give him, they told me, get his things, only necessities. I refused. I won't get anything I want. He'll come back. He's about to be back. I was so sure it couldn't be true. No. It couldn't be possibly happened. And when they were walking him, nudging, I didn't cry. I haven't shed a tear. No. Only after they drove him away could I bear down into tears, because I was attached. I was so attached to him. Every burden brings alleviation. Every burden brings alleviation. The prisoners. The courts. The prisons.
Сулейман Асанов
Suleiman
народився
Asanov
1977
was
року в
born in
Узбекистані у місті Бекапані.
1887
При народженні
in
отримав ім'я
Uzbekistan.
Марлен.
He
від
was
Маркс
born
і
Marlen, like Marx
Пізніше
and
змінив.
Lenin. He has
У
changed his name later
1980-х
on,
разом із батьками
but
переїхав
moved
в
back to
Крим.
Crimea and his
Здобув
parents
вищу
in the
освіту за фахом
1980s. He got a
філолога,
degree in
викладача
Turkish and
турецької
Crimean
та
Tatar
кримськотатарської
philology
мов і
to become a
літератури.
teacher.
Працював
He taught
вчителем.
Crimean
На
language
уроках
and literature.
популяризував
He
історію
tried to
кримських татарів.
promote the history of Crimean
Заснував
Tatars in his
Бахчисарай,
classes.
караван-сарай,
Suleiman Asanov founded a
культурно-етнографічний
caravanserai
центр
Sala
для
Czech,
відпочинку
a
подорожніх
Bakhchisarai,
і
cultural
гостей.
ethnographical leisure
Одружений,
center.
4 дітей.
Married, father of
Від
4. Since
2014 року
2014,
активно
he was
допомагав
actively
сім'ям
reported the
політв'язнів.
families of the political
Відвідував
prisoners.
усі
He
судові
attended all of
засідання
the
за
politically
політично
charged
вмотивованими
trials.
справами.
Besides,
Опублікував на
he
своєму
published numerous
YouTube-каналі
videos of the
відео.
searches on his YouTube channels.
12
On
жовтня
October
2017
12,
року
2017,
заарештували
Suleiman
за
Asanov was
обвинуваченням у
arrested on the charges of
терористичній
involvement in terrorist
Його
activity.
засудили до 19
Suleiman was
років
sentenced to
колонії суворого
19
режиму.
years in a high security
Захист
prison.
подав апеляцію.
The defense has filed an
Айша
appeal.
Асанова.
Aisha Asanova, I was there to hear the verdicts.
Чесно кажучи, я навіть не дослухалась до тих
Honestly, I
слів.
couldn't even hear the whole speech. I was trying
От у цьому
to
акваріумі.
catch
У
Suleiman's
мене аж
eye in
витки
the
почали
bloody
зводити
fish tank. You know, I even
Думаю,
got a stitch in
чому
my
це
leg.
в мене цікаво?
I
А
could not
потім я
tell
зрозуміла,
why,
що
but
це виходить,
indeed
я так
I've
сильно
understood
вгору
that there was
тягнулася,
some.
щоб
I
його
was
побачити.
tiptoeing so much to
Я
get
цього
higher to
от,
see him, to have a
цього
glimpse of him beyond all of those
з чоловіками,
men.
так? Цими
What do you
конвоїрами.
call them? Like
Я не
escort?
пропустила жодного
Then
суду. Тому коли
I've
суддя
never
озвучив
missed a
вирок,
single
я розуміла,
court
що я
session.
можу
So when the
його...
prosecutor demanded, when I hear the verdict, I've understood
як
that,
то кажуть,
you know, I
так,
might
суддя
have.
будує стіни між
Yes,
мною
that
і
the
чоловіком за
judge is
площею
building this
19
walls between
років.
us
І
for this 19 years,
я не
and
налаштовувала
I
себе,
didn't know.
що... Я не
I
налаштовувала себе, що
I've just
не
not
буде
tried to got
справедливості
myself.
тут, у
I
суді.
didn't know
Її
there was
немає.
this no justice in the court.
Після того, як
There's
прокурор
none of it
запросив
here.
20 років йому,
After
я
the
себе
prosecutor
налаштовувала на
demanded
те,
for
що
20
менше не
years, I
буде.
prepared myself for the
Постійно собі казала
worst.
в
I've
голові,
told
що
myself
менше
that
не
it
буде,
will not be
справедливості
less, it will
немає,
not be
але
less, the justice is
я
now
сподівалася на
nowhere to be
Всевишнього.
seen.
І
But I
все
still
одно
hope for the God's
сподівалася.
mercy,
І
and I
зараз
did, and I
сподіваюся на
still
диво,
hope,
тому
and now I'm still hoping for a miracle.
що від Аллаха буде.
For a miracle
Але
from
зробить
Allah,
так,
and
що
Allah
ми
will turn the clock
прокинемося
back,
знову.
and we
Так
will
само,
once
як
again
прокинулися
wake
в
up, just
14
like we
році.
had back in
Так, ми нічого не
2014.
робили, але
Because
раптом
actually, yes, we've
прокинулися
done
в
nothing,
іншій
just woke up
реальності.
in another
Так,
reality,
заходь.
and it all
Може,
happened in a drop of
і
a
так
hat.
буде.
So
Раптом раз
maybe this just will
прокинулися,
happen
все буде,
once
як було,
again.
і
We will
ніяких
just
тут
wake up,
взагалі
and
знову
everything
не
will be
буде
as it
цієї
is. They will be
дійсності,
back, and
зараз.
there's no this
Тому що
reality that we're currently
несправедливість.
going to in, because
Справедливість
injustice
має
and
перемогти, так?
but justice has to win,
справедливість
right?
зникнути.
And injustice must
Він
disappear.
бачив, що я плачу. Ну,
He saw me cry.
він знає, яка я людина,
He
тому
knows
що я
what kind of a
дуже
person I am. Like, you know,
вразлива, так?
I'm vulnerable, very
Тато мені каже,
vulnerable. Like,
коли
my
Аллах
dad
сльози
always tell
розливав,
me,
ти
you must
була
have been in the
перша.
first line when Allah gave away the tears.
Наріман Мемедімінов народився
Nariman Mehmedimинov was born in 1983 in Leninsk, Republic of Uzbekistan. In 1991, his family moved back to Crimea. He graduated from Ternopil National Economics University with a degree in international economics. Married, father of 3. Since 2014, he was actively engaged in human rights advocacy, becoming the citizen journalist, media coordinator of Crimean Solidarity platform, has suffered from numerous repressions, received threats. On March 22, 2018, he was arrested on the charge of violating Part 2 of Article 2005.5 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation. Public calls for committing terrorist activity, public justification or propaganda of terrorism. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and 6 months in a colony settlement. Mehmedimинov served the full sentence and was released on September 21, 2020.
Lemara Mehmedimинova.
Lemara Mehmedimинova. Nariman was always fascinating me during the course proceedings. He was really listening closely to the witnesses. He knew exactly what was going on. He could ask questions, debate them at this point. In short, but he always was trying to make sure that he's innocent. And even this sentence, 2.5 years, well, that's a miracle. Aisha Asanova, now when I'm asking about what he was doing in prison, how do you spend your time? And he says like, nothing, it's all, I'm just going for a walk. And I'm asking like, what do you see when you do go into the walk? And he said, nothing, it's all walls and a large space, tall walls. And I'm asking, and the sky? Do you even see the sky? Because, you know, we don't have even a tree. There's not a single tree to see. And he says, the sky? I do see a little square from the bars.
Тобто навіть дах у них там
So, you know,
повністю.
they even they don't see the
Нещодавно каже,
sun.
учора
You know, and he
навіть
just
сонечко
told
трошки
me
вдалося
yesterday I
відчути
could even
обличчя.
feel a little bit of sun on my face. I
Закройте
stood there in the
занавески.
sun. Close the curtains.
Наріман Мемедімінов,
Nariman Mamadaminov,
мусульманин у
a
в'язниці,
Muslim in prison.
йому складніше,
It's
тому
harder
що
for
треба
him, you see,
здійснювати
because
певні
he has to
обряди
perform certain
поклоніння. Тобто я
rituals,
молюся,
and it's not a burden, not
дивиться
at all.
телевізор,
You know, I'm praying, and someone
цій
is
ситуації
watching
робити?
this TV. What should I do with
Вимкнути
that?
телевізор, молитися,
I have to
або
either pray with it on
душі, або
or escape
пояснити,
the sound
якщо
with
мені
help
треба.
of earplugs or attempt to
Слухай,
explain,
вимкни,
like,
будь ласка,
hey, listen,
телевізор.
could you please turn it off for a while?
За весь
Dilara
період, за 3
Ibrahimova.
роки, у нас було
I
близько,
could
мабуть,
only
6
visit
тисяч,
him
ми
6 or 7
побачимо.
times in 3
У них там
years.
дуже великий, мабуть,
They must suffer
інформаційний
from like
голод.
great informational
Переговори
deprivation, because
України
the
з
first
Росією,
question is always
переговори
like
взагалі, що
news,
відбувається у
what is
світі.
going on, negotiations,
Остання
what's going
ситуація
on
в
with
Криму з
Ukraine
водою,
and
їх
Russia,
теж
the
це
situation
все
with
цікавить.
water in Crimea, everything is good for them. So what? What's going on? Did they dry out? What's happening?
Закройте
What's happening?
занавески.
Close the curtains.
Ми буквально 5 хвилин
Khalida Bakirova, we literally got 5 minutes when he was still in Rostov at the time. He asked, what about the children, what the parents, the house, what is going on? And I caught myself thinking that his hands turned out pale whites. I used that he is always working, he's doing something, always in construction, and his hands were always rough, tanned. And these 3 months, and then half a year, and 9 months in the detention centers, his hands got white and soft and pale. It was never good for him. Aliev Memetova. It is only later I learned how violent the arrest has been. You know, Osman has beaten up, hit over the head and eventually passed out. They managed to beat him about it with ammonia, and one of them said, what are you mad? You could have killed him. I need to hear, so what? They're still better than 20 years behind a bar, if you ask me. And the first thought was for me, those people who are arresting them, aren't they men?
Виходиш, дивишся на людей, або читаєш там.
It's a very pity that you go in there looking at this at people they raped, and it's frustrating. 7, 8 years for crimes, this and that, they deserved it. And here in this case, the person just for thoughts, for their own point of view. What kind of beliefs? It's absurd. We always well said in the kindergarten you should have your own personal point of view. You should not follow people blindly. And right now they're being arrested for the truth, for their point of view, for their thoughts, for something that you believe in and what you express in these terms. Dilara Ibrahimova, well, they're perfectly aware of this farce, of course, and the witnesses, they understand, everyone who witnessed all of these lies. The witnesses and the judges, they know it's all faked, and they say like, well, I get it, this guy's trial here, they're all very nice people, good citizens, and they're innocent. Close the curtains.
Цитати з екстремістської
The
літератури
quotes
завіси.
from prohibited literature and the curtains.
Загальні лиха приходять
The common
через
trouble
помилки
stems
більшості.
from the mistake of the majority.
Біда,
Misfortune is the conclusion of the crime and the beginning of self.
шлях безсилля говорить.
The path of weakness commands
Чотири
the
речі
necessity
необхідні.
of 4 things.
Абсолютна
The
бідність,
absolute poverty,
абсолютне
the absolute
безсилля,
weakness, the
абсолютна
absolute
наснага,
elation, and the
абсолютно
absolute
будь-яка
gratitude, my
нелюбожадна.
dear brother.
Єство
The
не бреше.
essence does not lie.
Здатність до проростання
The
в
pit's
кісточці
tendency to
каже,
grow
я
says,
проросту
I
і
will come up
принесу
and bring
плоди.
you fruits, which
І вона
speaks
каже
the
правду.
truth.
У яйці
An
є
egg has
здатність
a
до
tendency
життя.
to life.
Воно каже,
It
я
says, I will
стану
grow
хрущем.
into a chicken.
І
And
волею
by the
Аллаха
grace of
стає
Allah, it speaks to the
каже
truth.
правду. Пригорща
A
води
handful
своєю
of
здатністю
water
до замерзання
says, with
каже,
its freezing
я
potential,
займу
I
більше
will
місця.
take more space.
Навіть міцне
Even
залізо
solid
не може
iron
її
cannot
заперечити.
contradict it. The
Правдивість її
truth of its
слів
words shatters
розриває залізо
iron
на
into
шматки.
pieces.
Ці
These
здатності
tendencies
є
are a
проявом творчих
manifestation of
наказів,
the creative
що
voluntary
йдуть від
commands,
волі.
and they
Є
are
їхнім
their reflections.
відображенням.
Осман Ариф Меметов народився
Osman Arif
1985
Mehmetov was
року у
born in
Ташкентській області
1985 in
Узбекистану.
Tashkent district in Uzbekistan.
1990-го разом із
In
родиною переїхав до
1990, he
Криму.
moved back to Bakhchisarai,
Закінчив
Crimea,
Таврійський
with his
національний
family.
університет
Had
за
a degree in
спеціальністю
mathematics at
математика.
Taurida
Працював
Vernadsky National
програмістом,
University. I
репетитором
was a software
математики,
developer,
готував
math
дітей до
tutor,
іспитів
trained
і
children for their
займався з ними
exams and taught them with the basic software
Одружений,
skills.
двоє
Married,
дітей.
father of two.
2015 року
Since
став
2015,
громадянським
he has been an
журналістом,
active citizen
активістом
journalist,
Кримської
an activist of
солідарності.
Crimean solidarity,
Висвітлював обшуки
bringing
та
light
судові
to the
процеси,
constant searches,
допомагав
investigation and
організовувати
court
передачі
hearings.
в СІЗО
He helped
для
send off
несправедливо
parcels to
засуджених
unjustly
кримських
arrested
татарів.
Crimean Tatars kept in the
27
detention
березня
center.
2019 року
On March
в будинку Османа
27,
провели обшук.
2019, his own
Наступного дня
house was
суд
searched.
постановив
On the next
залишити його
day,
під
he
вартою.
was sentenced to
Ариф
arrest
Меметову
until May
загрожує до
15th.
20 років
He
позбавлення
is
волі.
now facing up to 20 years in prison.
Якось у нас була така розмова, що я кажу.
And
Сервери, така реальність
I
зараз.
had
що
this
тебе можуть
conversation, server,
забрати.
that's basically the reality is that
Може,
you
кажу,
might
нам
be taken
поїхати?
away.
Він
And
сказав, що, по-перше,
maybe
Крим
should we
наша
go?
батьківщина, і ми тут
He
жили,
said that
будемо жити.
Crimea is
І нас
our
звідси ніхто не вижене.
motherland
Це
and no
наше,
one will
так?
take us out, no one
Чому,
will
каже,
make
я
us
маю
leave.
їхати?
It's our
Я, каже,
land. I
допомагаю
should
людям.
not go
Що,
away.
каже, я
I
такого
live
поганого
here.
роблю,
What have
що
I
маю
done so
їхати?
wrong that I have to
Я тоді
leave?
зрозуміла.
And I have understood it was clear to me that any discussion was pointless. Halide
Мухаммед ніколи нічого
Bekirova.
не каже. Мені
Muhammad
завжди
doesn't
здавалося,
talk
що це ніби
much.
навіть
Like I used to
якась
think it was
байдужість,
almost
чи
out of
що,
some kind of
якесь таке
indifference of
закрадалося
something.
в
But I had
голові.
this,
А
I
якось
had
він
thought
зробив
about
одну
that. But
штуку.
then he did one
Зробив
thing.
таку
I was shocked.
аплікацію.
He
Я
made
була
this
трохи
kind of
вражена, чесно кажучи, і
I was
каже,
shocked. He made this
Оце
cutout.
дерево,
He said,
каже,
see,
наша
this
сім'я.
tree represents our
Ось
family.
Салахудін,
This is
Мухаммед,
Salahuddin,
Халіде,
Muhammad,
Софія.
Halide,
Я кажу,
Sophia.
«А чого ти бабаку
And
не
I was asking,
позначив?»
like, why
А
haven't
це
you
мені
noticed
так
your babaka,
приписала.
your
Він
dad?
каже,
And
«А ось його
he
силует,
said, like,
його
here's
тут
this
немає». Я кажу,
silhouette.
«Ну, чого
Well,
немає?
he's
Він же
absent
член
from here,
нашої
but
родини».
why
А
he's
він
not
каже,
here? He's a member
«От
of
за
our
градом,
family
за
as well. He
гратами,
said,
каже,
here he is,
«А
behind
оця
the
гуся
bars.
це
And
ФСБшники,
this is
які
the
тримають
representative
їх.
of
А
the
оце,
secret
каже,
services
усі їхні
who are holding
інші
them.
джеки,
And
які
this is
в
all
тюрмах
of their
зараз.
other
А це,
jacks
каже,
kept in
їхні
prisons.
дерева,
See, these are their
їхні
own
сім'ї.
trees, their
І в
families.
кожному дереві є
And each
порожнє
of them,
яблуко,
they're
от
lacking
якого
an
не
apple.
вистачає. І
Like
це,
their families
каже,
are
теж
also
їх
waiting for
сім'ї,
them.
які ждуть їх. На той
By
момент,
the
коли
time
він
he
робив
finished
цю
his
аплікацію, їх
cutout, there
було
were
64.
64 such families,
Зараз
and
вже
the number
набагато
is
більше.
constantly growing.
Ахмед Сулейманов народився
Ahmed Suleimanov was born in 1984 in Uzbekistan. Together with his parents, he moved back to Crimea at the age of 7. He studied in Madrasa in Simferopol. He was a really good student and he was invited to Turkey for further education, but his parents denied. Ahmed has a very serious heart disease. After that, he went to the construction lyceum in Bakhchisarai, and for the next 10 years, he was the manager and the salesperson in the phone and accessories shops. Through that time, it received a very good reputation. He's married 4 children. Ahmed Suleimanov was a streamer for Crimean Solidarity. In March 11, 2020, he was arrested. The very next day, the Kyiv district court in Simferopol passed a decision sentenced Ahmed to home detention. That the reason was this heart condition, and his staying in detention center would pose a direct threat to his life. Ahmed is charged with violating the part of 2 Article 205.5 of Criminal Code of Russian Federation, involvement in a terrorist organization. He's facing up to 20 years in prison. Ahmed Suleimanov, right, I have heart issue. The man who wrote, namely, filled the detention report, was quite shocked, and I'm starting to have it up to since the age of 20, and I still need a surgery after that. This guy from the FSS who was filling in the report, he was shocked. He said, like, so what do you mean? Like, you have this and this and that. And he looks at me and then he says, like, how can you still be alive? And the next day, the court hearing should have been held at 4 o'clock. We were there, sitting there in those cars over there. And at some point of time, there was a person standing by my father, and my father says, like, look at this, Ahmed. The investigator wants to have you at home detention, that 90% that they will let you go to your house. You will get back to your home to die. Do you understand that? The lawyers get us food. So everything we had, and we started to eat, and I cannot tell them. The other guys do that. They're eating now, the three of them, and I'm standing aside. And Rustem Agha, the oldest of us, said, "What are you doing there?" I said, "Rustem Agha, I'm not hungry." I said, "Why so? You haven't eaten in a while, just like me, and this is now the moment the food is getting for us in the detention center. It will be a whole other story. They will not let us have this food." And the truth is at the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't say that. And then I say, "Aguilar, you see, I've got something to tell you. I've sentenced you home detention." And they all stood up and hugged me, completely forgetting about the food. They said, "We're happy for you that they let you go home. But all of you are going to prison while I'm coming home." It wasn't guilt that I felt. No, there was no guilt. I knew of their innocence. Well, not like knew, I was just totally sure of it, just as innocent as I was. And I would come home to my family, embrace my kids, like be with my family. And even though they're no less innocent than I was, they would be able to do that. And this look on their faces. And I was leaving, no words can describe that. My wife was expecting, and I told them, "Fellas, listen, I just want to tell you something. I'm having the fourth child, and we haven't just decided on the name, so I'm sorry, and the God willing, I will call my son, will have the name for my son, and inshallah, he will be born in a month, and I will call him Seitablaev, after the accused. Seitablaev, Rustem Seitablaev, and Osman. So the newborn child will be the symbol of our freedom and will guard it in the future. We have read the dua together, and it wasn't expected. They didn't expect it, and so I went home. But you can never forget that. Every time when I'm getting to eat, every time I remember that. Because here I am in my family, and there they are, in a completely different conditions.
І після кожного тягаря приходить
Every burden brings alleviation. Every burden brings alleviation.
Не приходить.
No,
Не
it
приходить.
doesn't. It doesn't.
Зараз я розповім про
I will
Мусу,
now tell you about
молодшого
Musa,
сина
the
Руслана
youngest son of
Нельзара,
Ruslan and Nilzara,
який пропав
who
одного
had
дня,
once gone missing,
якого
who
шукали
had been
тисячі
looked
людей.
for by thousands, and who eventually died because his mother was left all alone with the 3 children.
Молодша
The
дитина, так,
youngest,
він
the
же
youngest
найсолодший.
child, wasn't he the
Коли
sweetest?
чоловіка забирали,
They took him
йому було
away
рік
when the
ідей.
boy, was no older than a year and 9.
казав.
He could only bubble his first
І коли він
words.
пішов 3 роки,
And when
думав,
he
це
walked,
геть
he
інша
was
дитина.
3, a whole other
І
child
коли я в
indeed.
листах навіть чоловіку
I
писала,
even
що
wrote
він
in
вже
my
це
letters
робить,
to him, he does
він
this, he does
Руслан
that.
дуже
And he
дивувався.
was
Це
very
що ти?
surprised. Ruslan had
Так він
no
казав.
way. He said it just like this.
Муса був
Musa
такий
himself
розумний
was a
хлопчик.
very bright boy, so
Він цього всього
he
не
saw
бачив.
none of it, of
І оцей от
course.
біль, звісно,
And his
у нього
pain,
є. Плюс те, що його
and
не
the fact
пустили.
that they wouldn't let him
Хоч
go,
як адвоката
no
не
matter how
пустили,
the lawyers begged, they
його на
wouldn't let
поховання
him attend the
не допустили.
funeral.
Бодай
To see him
побачитися
at least
останнє.
once for the last time.
І після тягаря приходить
So does
полегшення.
every burden bring alleviation? So does every burden bring alleviation?
Амет Сулейманов.
Ahmed
Коли забирали
Suleimanov.
мене,
After that, it
знаючи
took
попередні
me
обшуки,
for the
що
2
дітей
months,
можеш
knowing
не
this
побачити найближчим
first
часом,
time, I knew that I
років,
would not be able to
навіть,
see
може,
my
десятиріччя,
children
хіба
in
що в
years, in
судах.
decades, maybe just
Я
in
це
courts.
розумів, а коли я
I've
повернувся
understood that,
наступного
and when
дня,
I
це
go
було
back
ввечері.
next day, it was
Пізно.
in the
Мене
evening, and
привезли, діти
it
обійняли,
was
вони
very
ніби
light, and my children
прилипли до
hugged me.
мене.
They kind of stick
часу
to
я
me,
сплю.
and since that moment, I sleep with my children.
Gözlerin
to return.
Алія Арифмамедова.
Aliyah Arifmamedova.
Я живу саме
Well,
сьогоднішнім днем.
I live in the moment, and I guess it was what it is. You think of different options. The children grown up already, and when he asks again, when do you think that they will let us go? I reply, I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting you for the coffee for every day. Even now, when he writes, he tells me that he misses my coffee. But that's funny. You see, he didn't drink coffee at all when we got married. I was obsessed with coffee, and he could only drink black tea. I preferred green. And now we both grew to love the coffee.
Халіде Бекірова.
Halide Bekirova. My daughter Sofia was 4, I guess, when they took Crimea away, and she once has told me, like, Sofia Bekirova,
Я хочу, щоб в мене
Mom,
чоловік
I
був такий,
want
як
my
Бабака.
husband to be like
Такий
Babaka
добрий.
was, like my dad was, just the so nice and kind. Halide, my dear, it is hard to find that husband like your father, because he's like extremely nice. Well, we will find such a guy for you. But we'll surely try. And she told me, when I stay in Crimea after I get married, we'll live. Why would you say that? Your dad and I stayed here against all the odds. We've decided to stay. She replied to
А я
that.
не хочу, щоб
I
мого
don't want
чоловіка
my
теж
husband to
забрали,
be
як Бабаку.
arrested like Dad was.
Мая Мустафаєва.
Maya Mustafayeva.
Коли він вийде, перше, що...
When he's
Ой, я
released,
навіть не
well,
знаю, що
the
можна
first thing,
першим
oh, I
зробити.
don't even know what's the
Це, мабуть,
first
усі
thing will
родини
be
так
done. Well, I think
обійнятися,
we'll have a
з дітьми,
hug
так
with
це.
family, as a
Я
family,
ніколи не забуду,
tightly
коли Сервер
with
приходив
kids,
з
and I could
роботи,
never
всі
forget
ті
when
пігли до
Server
нього,
used to
так
come
от
back
всі,
from
типу,
work and they would
то
raise
швидше
their
до нього
swords, like
застрибне, то й встиг.
jumping to be
А я
the
завжди
first to
думала,
jump on here.
а я?
I would always think,
А я
and what
завжди
about
збоку
me?
думала,
I always was out
а
of
як же я?
picture, sort of,
Прикро
and I
було.
was,
І от, мабуть,
what
це
about me? And
обійнятися
I guess to hug
усім
each other properly.
разом.
That's what I
Ельдара
want.
Сулейманова.
Eldara
Може
Suleimanova.
відкрити свою справу якусь,
Maybe
бути корисною,
to
щоб...
have a business of my
Взагалі
own,
мені
like to be
подобається
sort of
психологія.
useful. I actually really
Хоч зараз
like
мені вже
psychology,
31,
and even though I'm
але я
31
кажу,
already,
ніколи не пізно.
I believe it's never too
Мені
late.
подобається
I like
дізнаватися
learning about
проблеми
people's
людей,
problems and
якось
helping
допомагати
them to
їм.
overcome
Щось
those.
пов'язане з
But again,
спілкуванням з людьми.
something with the communication with people. But again, you know, I miss Ruslan
Мабуть,
for that.
який буде
Like,
підштовхувати.
you know, the one who's going to push me to that. Limara Mamademinova. I grew stronger. I'm more independent. Like, it's not a big deal for me to pull everyday tasks, you know, like running the household, dealing with some paperwork, whatever. It's not that hard for me.
Я просто не розуміла, що
At
робити.
that moment, I had no idea what I have to do. That was really hard because Nariman has done everything instead of me. But right now, I'm stronger. I'm even, I would say, rough at some times. Surya Sheikh Aliyeva. Well, we want to live here in our Crimea, drink our Crimean Tatar coffee, keep our old traditions. That's our dream. That's what we want. Because when we got back to Crimea, we didn't even have an opportunity to see all of those beauties, to go around it, to get a sight of it, to cherish every day. That's what we want. He used to tell me, every burden brings alleviation. Zofia, he loved me and Snickers. It's hard to believe. It's hard, but still, you put the numbers together, like, what if he gets 15 years? In 15 years, he'll be back, and she'll be older, and I'll be older as well. You just count that, you know. The eldest will be almost 40 by then, so does it even
Так,
matter
а ще мені
anymore?
здається, що бабашка приїде,
Sophia, no, and I think that my babashka will come back and they will call, like, and my mommy will call and they say, like, it will be a big airport in Kyiv, let us say, and my mommy and daddy will come out from the plane, and my mommy will be with a bunch of balloons, and the rest will go posters, and I will see my daddy and jumping at him, saying, like, how you grow? And Nemara Mamadimidova, when he was coming back, and we knew that he was back, and the family was waiting for him, and those moments, it was unforgettable, so emotional, I couldn't even believe it, that there he is, he's walking, he's there, and you know, this happiness, the children, and you know, the children still up till now, they're waiting for him. Those are very different children. They're so calm that I'm really surprised. I can't even imagine that Nariman is back and the kids have to be in kids, like arguing, fighting with each other, so on and so forth. But none of that since he came back. Everything is calm. They are satisfied. And if Nariman is at home, that's all they ever we dreamed. That's as if no one is at home. So when I finally was out, I think that I've I've said it to the guys, you know,
ніби
can you
вийшли,
imagine?
їдемо вже.
Here we are, you
Вже
know.
їдемо.
We were there
Коли
already on our way
приїхав,
home, and
оця кількість
when I've
людей
got
величезна,
back, and this amount of
родина
people,
там зустріне.
my family is
Врешті-решт,
going to be there, and
молодший вибіг,
you
потім
know, my
середній вибіг.
youngest was there,
І
then
нарешті
the
підійшла
middle was
дочка,
there, and then
дружина,
my daughter
мати,
was there, my
сестра і
mother,
так далі. І після того, як
my
от з ними
sister,
вже
and then after
привіталися,
I have
обійнялися,
greeted everyone, and
поцілувалися,
after
вже
I have
от
kissed everyone,
натовп
hugged
людей,
everyone,
він не
and then
закінчується.
these tons of
Багатьох
people,
не
they
знаєш, і
never ended, but still there
все
was a
одне
very nice
приємно.
welcome, even though there were strangers.
Хотіли б,
I
звісно,
only
щоб
missed that I hadn't
я
been
не один там був.
the
І
only
хочеться
one who was
дуже,
released.
дуже хочеться, щоб повернулися
We
всі
really
інші
wish, we
наші
really wish
хлопці.
all of
Тому
our
що навіть
men
коли я
to be
там
back
стояла,
home,
зустрічала
because when I was waiting for
Нарімана за
Nadiia
моєю
to come
спиною
back, there
стояли
were women
дружини, вони були
standing
всі
behind
там. І
me.
просто на той момент я
They
просто...
all were
У мене
there.
була така картинка, щоб
And this moment I had this
інші
picture.
всі,
I
тому
really
що
wanted
дружини,
everyone
вони
to
дуже
be
близькі
back
мені,
because
я їх дуже люблю.
the
Вони
wives
навіть
there are
дзвонили
really
мені,
close
і
to
в них
me. I
теж був
love them.
такий
They've
відлік.
called me. They've also
Марко,
had
ще
this
3 дні
countdown.
лишилося, ще 2
The
дні
Marka, 3
лишилося.
days
Я кажу,
left, 2 days
дівчата,
left.
не можу
Then I
повірити,
told
от
them,
чесно,
girls, I
до
can't
останнього.
believe,
Кажу,
really, I couldn't
поки
believe
він не
it till the
прийде,
last
поки я тут
moments
його
when,
не
until I
побачу,
see him
що
with
дорога
my eyes,
далека,
until
поки він
he'll be
доїде.
here. There's
Я
a
не могла
long way to
повірити.
go.
І
I
вони
couldn't
раділи,
believe
звісно,
that. They
за
were so
спиною
happy for me,
моєю
but of
постійно
course behind my
поверталися,
back
на
they
них
were,
дивилися, а вони всі
I
плакали.
was looking at them and they will
А
all
от просто
cry.
цікаво, коли він сидів у машині, скло було
But just out of
прочищене,
interesting,
вони з
when he was sitting in the
дівчатами
car,
співали
the window was
пісню.
lowered and the
Я
girls
давав
and
собі
I sang the
музику.
song,
Пісню
Yunada
співав
Varsum
собі.
Heikus al Kerim.
Казав,
You exist, the
Чув
beautiful
він?
Crimea.
чи не
Could he
чув?
hear us
Левіза Джеляла.
or no?
Я йому
Levisa
казала,
Jalal,
чуєш,
I
там
told him, do
співають.
you hear?
А
They're
він
singing
каже,
over there.
чую, чую.
He says, I can hear
Але та
that.
сторона, де ви співали, була
But the
закрита,
side where you were
здається.
singing, it was
Трішечки
closed,
ось
it
така
seems.
щілинка
Just a
була,
little
де я
bit,
його
just a
бачила,
small
просто його
space that I
руку,
could
і
see
ще
him. I
іноді
could
він
just see
ось
his
так
hand, and sometimes he
підіймав
raised his
голову,
head
очі,
and
в той
listened.
момент йому передали
I
їжу
gave him the homemade
домашню. У мене
food at
одна
this
проблема,
moment, and there
розумієте?
was just one
Я
problem, you know.
переживала,
I
кажу,
just was worried.
посидь, поїж в машині.
I just sit in
А
the
він
car
сидів
and
і до
eat.
сих пір
And he
посміхався,
sat there still
махав,
smiling,
казав, що
waving,
все
saying
добре,
that
всіх
everything's
чує,
fine.
що
He
всім
can hear
величезний привіт
everyone.
передає.
He's
Ну,
sending
він ще
the
на суді це говорив.
best
Єдиний
of
його посил
greetings to
каже,
everyone. He said it in court as well.
одного.
His only message
всім
was support
разом.
each other and stay together.